Hi, today I want to introduce you to Arthur Laurie. Arthur is one of my favorite people in the world, legitimately somebody I look up to and admire, and I can't wait to introduce you to him. So I'm going to shut up right about now because I want you to meet my friend Art. Enjoy. Okay, Arthur, so this is the moment where you get to sit uncomfortably because I'm going to tell you all of the reasons I absolutely love you.
Mhm.
Um, you are legitimately one of the people I am so glad has come into my orbit. Not only are you incredibly talented and generous with that talent, just as a person, you're just one of the people I just kind of I look up to. I flat out look up to, and I'm inspired by. And just if I'm gonna follow somebody's footsteps, you are right there. Um, so I'm just gonna start off on top of that, just saying thank you. A lot of the stuff I have done over the last 15 years or whatnot would not be as good if you weren't there alongside me.
I
So
appreciate
you are somebody I will go to the ends of the earth for, and I am thrilled that I get to introduce you to some people who have not had the good fortune of meeting you yet. So I will just start off for a third time by just saying thank you for being you, man. I
that.
really I count myself very lucky
I
to
appreciate that.
count
Listen,
you
back at you because you said it better than I could. So,
as um and one of the things that just the Arthur of it all is your background is so varied, and I just find it fascinating, and I know I only know the tip of the iceberg on some of this stuff. So before our circles came into orbit at the Rocky Horror Picture Show, a continuing theme on some of these interviews. I
mhm.
know you had a whole life before that, so I would love to know the before Arthur time.
Uh,
And
let's see if I.
and if you want a little bit of help, I know I have always known you as a performer.
Mhm.
Before you found Rocky, were you a performer? Were you a creator?
Um, Not so much. It was something I really wanted to do because it was. Well, that's a good way to put this. I like the atmosphere and I just like being around people who are creative. And for a
Hmm.
while, that was just enough. It was enough to watch people create things and just be open and excited about things. And it was it was a great energy to be around.
Yeah.
And when I first started doing Rocky, it was like 1979 when I first got on stage and started mimicking. Um, I didn't think it was going to be long term because I didn't think I belonged.
Hmm.
No, I mean, and it
Yeah.
wasn't
What
because
way?
I'm not good enough. I'm not this and that because I didn't think I had the same love of doing it
Hmm.
as the other people did, and it felt a little false initially because I was just kind of there and I was having fun, but um, started getting into it, started getting good at it, started making it a sort of like a project in my head.
Hmm.
And the more people I met, the more encouragement we got, and the more times we practiced, and the more times we did it, and it just snowballed into this is just so awesome. I love this, and it's still to this day hard to take a compliment about anything. I'm just not, I can't fix that. That's a DNA. But it it became like a nice place to be, and then I started seeing other people like me that just weren't sure, sort of, trying to hobble their way through, early stages of their career and their socializing. And so it just became full circle, that started helping people that came in, and encouraging people, and they started encouraging people, and we surround ourselves with a nice community. And the best part of this, to this day, most of those people are still either in the inner circle or sort of on the periphery checking in. Everybody's lives go into divergent paths, but we always have that closeness we shared early on, and it was for some of us it was a lifesaver. And it feels good, to be around, and it was encouraging, and for me, it just, this is cool. How about we do something else? Let's try something else. I mean, I didn't know what I had skills in doing, but I was just like, I'm going to try something else. I'm going to jump in. This worked out well. What else?
I want to pick up something real quick because
Mhm.
one of the things that I love about you, because you do it day after day, year after year, is you are a support. You are, you know, you are what people need, whether it's a life preserver, whether it's a well-loved kick in the ass. You are a supporter, and you do it without being asked. It is your DNA. You do it like we breathe. And you talked about supporting others that came in. That the way you support people, was that is that kind of like your just your DNA to begin with? Or I know part of me is I'm constantly thanking the people who took the time out to help me, to mentor me. um the way I can thank them is to pass it along to the next group. And so I guess I'm kind of curious that putting a hand out and helping, has that been you, or was that fostered through Rocky?
I think it's always been part of my DNA, but through Rocky, it became, well, I was to say, initially it was sort of a path to acceptance. If you just be
Hmm.
the guy that people can come to, people can count on. But especially in the early days of doing the show, it was really one of the few safe spaces if you were gay. We had like a fairly thriving community in Boston in the late '70s, but there weren't many places you could just go and be. And I had said this to somebody before, because I had a car and I was in a unique position because nobody drove. So the end of every Friday and Saturday show, there'd be a small contingent of people looking for rides home, and it was fine. I might have been snarky about it then, and I apologize now, but it was fine. But if you look at it from the perspective of them, this is really, you had to go out of the house. You had to sneak out of the house through basement windows and lie to
Hmm.
your parents just to go be yourself. And then after all this is said and done, you had to go back to that life for another week. And that was almost depressing, because
Yeah.
I could come and go as I pleased. I had no barriers.
Yeah.
So it just sort of became, I don't want to say a mission, because that sounds a little cliche, but pretty much, if I had the resources, if I had the time, if I had the car, if I had the gas money, I mean, it was yours. It's because these were very small things that made, for people in that position, a major difference in their weekend and in their week. So it just it became something we should do, and I try to uh, impress that on other people, because you're not just here alone. You're not just here, unsupported. You got here, you're safe, you get home. Some people don't.
Hmm.
You might want to extend a hand and say, if there's something I can do, can't buy you a house, but I can get you to Quincy.
Right. um were you cognizant of that at the time? Because I know, like, I can look back and go, oh, I guess that's why I did that, but I might not have known in tangible words why I was doing what I was doing at the time. Were you cognizant of, I guess, your place, your privilege of that moment, or was it more I guess looser of just wanting to help and then kind of figuring out the structure of it later?
I think that's more of it. You want to be in a social setting, and you want your place. There's got to be a
Yeah.
place for you. Um, and it just became, this is where I fit in. I wasn't, overly talented. I wasn't overly loud. I wasn't, overly um, in people's faces. I didn't have the gift of gab, but people counted on me for little things, and they weren't really things that took me out of my way or were a burden. So that kind of came my place,
Mhm.
and and after a while, you get to the point where I'm comfortable. This is what my role is in this little group. So as I look back on it now, I mean, you always look back with clarity. Yeah, I did it because I'm a great guy. Basically, I did it then because I just wanted to fit in, and it just felt better than doing anything else.
Yeah, that's excellent. So part of the wonderful, I don't know, complexity or dichotomy that is you,
Mm.
you are also a veteran.
I am
Navy, correct?
Navy. Well,
Oh.
gets. Let me take a swallow. And I'm apologize because I'm going through truck driving school this week, and you have to recite, the script of checking a truck, and my voice is starting to fail on me. But
Oh no, not the
I'm
moneymaker.
I got plenty for you. Don't worry about it. So I joined the Navy, 1982. Spent 10 years. We went all over Europe, all over the North Atlantic. I left, took a civilian job, and a couple years later, I joined the reserves because I was just, looking for a paycheck. I wasn't married to it. So I was drilling in Quincy for a few years.
Mhm.
Um, but I wanted my weekends back, so I just let that lapse. About a year later, I joined the Army because I figured I want to change. The Army had a reserve, and I could just
Mhm.
slide right in because I wanted something different. That lasted a year. I want to say it was a mistake, but
Was it
I'll
was
play
it
narrator, but it was a mistake.
was it was it a fit thing? Was it a now you are 12 years older and so, just life changes, or what didn't fit that, apparently for 10 years it did with the Navy?
It Well, let me go back to that. It was um there was an expectation because I don't want to like get into a depressing family history. I mean, we're not all, alcoholics and abusers. Um, Not all of them, but we had a pretty good, it's like six brothers and sisters. We had a pretty good upbringing for what a guy working, two jobs could do
Mhm.
for a family of seven. And he was a World War II vet, and
Mm.
we used to regale us with some stories. I mean, he'd seen some things, but he's one of the greatest generation that comes back and like, well, blew up half of Asia. Let's have a barbecue. And that was it. I mean, he had great stories, but he wasn't damaged by it that I
Mm.
could tell.
Mhm.
And my brothers had joined. My one brother actually, retired a few years ago, and I sort of was floundering after high school. And it was like one of those. I went to college for a semester because that was my father's dream that at least one of us go to college.
Mhm.
I did for a semester and it didn't work out because I was just too immature. Let's face it, I didn't want to get up in the morning, drive to school where I didn't have to go to class. I wanted to, but if you don't go to class, you don't get credit, but you're still paying for it. So after a semester, I just dropped out. But I figured the only um, what's a good word for it? Redemption
Mhm.
join the military. And it was one of the better decisions for me personally, because like I said, I was undisciplined. I didn't I didn't care about much. I mean, I wasn't a bad person, but I had no motivation to do anything. I didn't know how to organize. I didn't know how
Mm.
to, express myself. I didn't know a lot of things, but it was a good experience. I'm not wasn't crazy about the military as a whole, because if all of your friends are what you consider today marginalized, back then there was just, sometimes it was still outlawed. There was um, no sympathy for that, and the military builds its discipline on, cohesion and esprit de corps, and they did not allow somebody to be gay in the military. And even if you acted like you were gay, you ran into some problems. And after spending a few years at Rocky before I joined the military, it was really, it was I don't want to say disgusting, because I serve a lot of good people, but this is not where I want to be unless there's changes. But at the time, I was kind of chasing the money, and I
Mhm.
spent 6 years. And listen, we'll give you a couple grand if you spend another four. I'm like, all right, I have no plans.
Yeah.
So that's why I did 10 years, and I got out. And I tried the army for. I just wanted to switch it up, see if it'd be different. No, it's not. It's not at all. Um, Same issues, same good people, just following the script. And if that's what you like, that's fine. And I just didn't, because of the people I have aligned myself with, and these are the people I will spend the rest of my life with. It just didn't. It wasn't a fit, and I
Yeah.
didn't want to become that.
Yeah.
So I left that, and then to round off my career, I joined the Air National Guard, because I wanted to put the time in to get that 20 years where I'd get like my miserable little check. So I spent 6 years in the Air Guard. That wasn't bad, because Don't Ask Hotel was long gone.
Hmm.
Um, there were no restrictions on who could serve, so you could be openly gay, you could be, you know, a little fabulous, and you were still, as long as you kept a little military discipline, it was fine. So it was a much easier um, stint. I did 6 years, went to a few schools, learned a lot,
Yeah.
and I did my time and got out. So
Eh.
and
So, and then you became somewhere along there.
in between,
Uh-huh. So
yeah,
in between Army and Air Guard.
yeah, I became. Say the words, George. Say the words.
A police
Say
man.
the words. Yes, I did. In I got out of the Navy in 1990,
Hmm.
and I had just had a kid. My wife Casey. We were living in an apartment, and it was, I don't know why they say that, if you're a veteran, it's just easy to find a job. It wasn't. It
Mm.
it was difficult, and we struggled for a couple of years. And it was always one of those things in the back of my head that maybe I should try. So I took the civil service test, passed it, and if you're a veteran on that test, you automatically jump to the top.
Mm.
So I took a test in May, got my results in August, and I was in the academy that next March.
Wow.
And it was for the city of Boston. I spent 10 years in Boston. I did a few odd jobs, few odd assignments. I left municipal policing because I saw a job over at um, the Humane Society as a police officer, and all
Mm.
you did was animal cruelty, which was an awesome job. But with every awesome job, the more awesome it is, um, the downside is always deeper.
Mm.
And your work was immediate. You got to see, like, you're basically saving the animals, is like sum it up, but you're seeing the worst people do the worst, and it's stuff that just never leaves you. This things you see. It's
Yeah.
uh, but
Yeah.
yeah, go
I've
ahead.
known you as somebody who is, always loved the animals. That you there is no there is no dog photo put in front of your face that is not greeted with a oh. And so I feel both of those. You know, if you love animals, you want to help them, but to help them, you've got to find them at their worst moment.
Yep.
You know,
You
and
know, and
that love cuts both ways.
yeah, and that's the unfortunate downside of policing. When I joined the police, you want to be, you want to like, I'm going to go help people, you know, and you quickly are introduced that, yeah, you want to help people, but for a majority of your time in a uniform, you're going to meet people who are the worst or at their lowest point, and the last thing they want to see is you.
Yeah.
It's yeah, when you get when you solve a case, when you resolve somebody's problem, it's always great, and then majority of the time you're dealing with this.
Mm-hmm.
And like I said, the animal side was a lot worse. You know, the things people do to animal. I don't even want to infer it because it just. Ugh.
Yeah.
So I spent 5 years there, and they unfortunately agencies like that are all nonprofit and they depend on donations. So when the stock market crashed, what about 2008
Yeah.
ish, they laid most of us off, and I was lucky enough to get picked up by the Veterans Hospital down the street,
Mm-hmm.
and I slid right in, and you know they say police officer, it's more like hospital security, but that's okay. My ego is not bruised. So I spent 10 years there. I left as a sergeant, but the majority of the time there, you weren't locking anybody up or swinging sticks or anything. You were these poor kids coming in with, you know, brain injury and, you know, oxy addictions and just all messed up. You were just de-escalating.
Yeah.
And if you wanted to like not get hit, you got really good at talking to people, doing that verbal judo. You know, can I help you? What can I do? What can I do right now
Mm-hmm.
that would make things a little easier for you? What can I do? I mean, this is the kind of attitude, and it's again counterintuitive to policing because the policing is uh, resolve the crime, resolve the disturbance, move on to the next. Here, you have to be you're embedded with the nurses and the doctors and the clinicians, and if you can talk somebody down before they start tearing the place up, you become an asset, and that was one of the best parts of that job, and um, I sort of gather the reputation as being, you know, having the gift of gab. And I don't know if it was my silky smooth voice that put him to sleep, but you know what? If it works, I don't care. It worked.
And it's interesting that you say that when we started our story off with you saying that you don't have the gift of gab.
I didn't.
And you're trying to find your way in, and yet you found yourself, you know, we're still on our journey, but at some point you found yourself on a journey where that sounded like your biggest asset.
It was, and I think mostly when I was in the Navy, part of the job I had was being on the radio. Now
Oh,
yeah, and I will go back to my grade school and my middle school. They thought there was something wrong with me when I was in third or fourth grade because I could not, you know, use a sentence. That this was the level, and this was the muttering that would come out of my mouth.
yeah.
And you know, I never heard it because nobody, you know, my family lived with it and they could understand, you know, the body language and the muttering. But when you get amongst teachers and kids, you can't be understood. I had to go to special ed classes, and they had to teach me how to read and articulate. And it took years. And when I joined the Navy, part of your duties was on the radio, and you got to be crisp. You got to be, and you have to know what you're saying because it's not a, hey, how are you? How are you doing?
Right.
Your boat's got to
There's
go left. That
purpose.
plane's got to go. It's got to go. It's got to go. You got to be on, and that helped a lot.
So
And
just
then
survival wise, you had to sharpen those skills.
absolutely, it was sink or swim. And you know, fortunately, I swimmed. I think that's the good part. Sink.
I'm
Swim.
with you.
Yeah. So so that helped, and I started. I really had a love for radio even before that, but then I became a ham after the Navy, and I just, I wanted to be a broadcaster. I had looked up going to broadcasting school
Hmm.
until I found out that if you're familiar with the state of radio, you know, a station could change formats at any time.
Yeah.
You'd be out of a job. And there's hundreds of stories of people that are making good money, established, and suddenly the radio station was bought out. We're going country.
Yep.
I-
Not the stability, not the stability you were looking for.
no, and that was one of the things I kind of look for in things is just stability. I don't.
Hmm.
I'll take a chance, but not when, you know, wife and kids are behind me. Like, we're paying the rent this month.
Yeah.
Yeah, we're paying the rent this month. I'm gonna go back to work. So, um,
I'm curious. Your those de-escalation skills.
mhm.
I think in no matter in any situation, they are powerful. And can make all the difference, right? Like whether it's in a professional setting or a personal setting. Um, through everything you learned by doing, what advice, what pieces of de-escalation did you pick up that you kind of feel like is transferable to any situation? What did you find worked?
First, you got to remove yourself
How so?
from the situation. If you're if you're walking on somebody who's distressed, the worst thing you could say is, "Oh, that sounds bad. Listen, weeks ago when I was at home, no, nobody cares. You've just shut them out. They just tune you out. You're done. This is not about you, and this is not an ego trip. You just remove yourself from their situation. You're trying to help, but you're not part of this. So you're going to ask with a sort of like a third disinterested party, you look like you're struggling. Is there something I can do for you? You want to like just vent for a few minutes? You want to talk about it? You know, is there something I can offer you? Go in with the I'm here to listen,
Mm,
and if there are any resources I have available, and that could be anything, you know, let's go get a cup of coffee. I have bought sandwiches for people that want to, you know, burn down the building, but they just want to vent about the bad experience they've had. They
mhm.
just want someone to vent to, you know, and you got to be willing to take the time and listen. And again, remove yourself. If they complain about you, they're not complaining about you. You're just being the vent point. If they're complaining about the hospital or the food or the people they know, you're just there to vent to. It's not you personally, and don't take it personally.
Yeah.
You know, that's hard to do if you have like some self-esteem and ego, which I, you know, previously did not, but you know, I'm trying to build. Uh, but that usually works. And of course, there's some people you just can't
Yeah.
talk to, but you don't get to that point of decision unless you at least offer, sort of mitigate, you know, try to be something of a support.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Thank you. That's
Mm,
fantastic. Um, I talked about it earlier, but while you're doing all of that,
mhm.
our orbits
Yeah.
come in, come in together, and I'm off on the side doing my things, and you know, trying to put things together, cast people in short films, that type of thing. And I'm asking around, you know, because at this point, you know, Rocky is my circle as well. And so that's who you're going to pull from when you're trying to make a thing.
Mm,
And so we're trying to figure out, you know, oh, well, we want to shoot this, we want to shoot that. Who can we pull? And your name gets brought up often. People are like, no, 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 you want to work with them. And so I sit there and I was like, okay, I trust these people. These people trust Arthur. You know, hey, Arthur, do you want to, you know, hey, Arthur, my name's George. Do you want to go? You want to go do this thing? Um, and then quickly I start working with you and seeing you do your thing, and it's like, oh well, this is somebody I want to work with forever and a day. And to go off of the shared resume, I've lost track of the number of short films we've done together.
God, yeah.
Uh, that begat 664, The Neighbor of the Beast.
Hmm.
There are our family living next door to Satan, trying to live a quiet suburban life, and you take the lead in that for 2.5 years and 36 episodes. We did Phone Hugs and Therapy, our podcast, our improvised podcast. So throwing you on the mic there, and
I love that.
I know I'm missing things, but we're here now where we're getting ready to record our read through.
Mm.
So I know, like I said, I know I have tapped you for multiple things. But I'm curious, when did the performing outside of Rocky come in? Because again, I know, like, it's my story, so clearly it started when I asked him, but that's probably a whole lot of BS.
No,
So
that's basically it. I mean, I'm trying to remember when the first time I did something other than Rocky. I don't know if it was with you or if Kevin, but if it was Kevin, then you were there.
yeah.
Um, but I was just uh, shocked that somebody would ask, um, because you at the time I was just very insecure because I saw people who do this for a living, and it was just they're so much better than I am, and they're so much more skilled than I am. But you raise your head up the crowd, like, no, you. I want you. What do you want me for? So the first few were very intimidating. Oh Lord, and it was just, I can't do this. Why are you asking me? I don't want to do this. I just gonna do. So you got to go, over and above, and just try to give what you think people want. And I mean, the best part about working with, when we started working with you, was, yeah, we were, I mean, we were friends, but you weren't afraid to say, I don't like that. Do something different. No, maybe a little shorter. Do something different. You weren't like, I'm gonna upset my friend. No, I need this actor and or this talent in front of me to do what I want them to do. And you weren't afraid to say, this isn't enough. This isn't good enough. This isn't, your phrasing was much nicer, but basically, let's start again. Do that again. And that's really what I needed, because otherwise I would have just been. I've never had any feedback, and that's when I really started getting feedback from people that I trust, and it felt better when things worked. And it made me want to do more and work a little harder, and especially when, excuse me, our mutual friend Diana. I know you'll be speaking to her eventually. Hey, Dee. Who's we've watched go from, I don't want to give away her plot, but
Rung one,
run one, and going to auditions and going to acting class and going to actually doing stuff. And so when she's around and says, that was pretty good. I didn't go to New York and go to class, but thank you. But also, well, maybe you want to try it like this, or maybe you want to do something like that, or maybe just not do that at all. That's an awesome statement, because it just keeps you grounded, and it's from people, especially from people you respect. That kind of criticism, you have to embrace it, and if you want to, you want to be good, you want to be better. And I wanted to be better, and that was life-saving, those comments and that attitude. So thank you.
that of course, life-saving. How so?
Um,
I'm wondering how specific that phrasing is.
it's might be an overstretch, but some of the best times that you go through the timeline of your life, some of the best times I've had were doing the show
Mm-hmm.
and doing these projects. I didn't go back to when you were a teenager and when you were in your 20s, and think of the things you do now. What did you think you were going to be doing when you were, then? None of this was on the radar. None of it. And so it makes that timeline all the nicer, all the sweeter. And, it just, when I say life-saving, life-changing might be a better word.
Okay.
Life affirming, because it's awesome, dude. It's awesome,
So this has come up a couple times, and so I kind of want to poke at it. The idea that like you weren't a performer and then you started performing. And I mean, what I hear there is just that's gutsy. There's a bit of bravery to that, to look at something that you're interested in, that you're attracted to, but at the time is completely opposite or foreign to who you are. And there can be that fight, freeze. Oh, I almost got it out.
Fight or flight.
Yeah. Where you look at it and it's like, that is completely new to me. I'm going to step away. But you've looked at this stuff and stepped forward, with a curiosity attached to it. Which I just, like I said, I find fantastic, and wonderful, and has, opened you up to experiences you never would have had before, and very selfishly I get to benefit from. So can you put into words that willingness to take a risk, to try something out of your comfort zone? Or is it more of just kind of a wiring DNA type of bit?
Well, I think it goes back to just wanting to be supportive, to help people. These projects are clearly important to you, to some of the other people we've been had the pleasure to work with. So if somebody asks, that means they have an inherent trust that you were the one to do this and you can do it. Sort of like the equivalent of a trust fall. I've never done it, but if you think I can do it, I'm willing to give it a try. And so you want to be gracious and say, of course I'll do it. And at night you're just like, I can't memorize these lines. I can't do this. I'm sweating. You still want to step forward and do it because somebody has put their faith in you that you have this ability. And that's kind of cool, and that's really the only reason why we just keep doing projects, because, well, if you think I can, I'll give it a shot. It was positively frightening the first couple, and then afterwards it became all right, now I just want to do great at this. How do I study? What do I want to do? Now I start, like, Diana was pointing out, you start putting the pieces of what you're trying to do, the character, the backstory together. It starts to evolve to a more focused, I'm going to do something. I'm not just going to stand up and start speaking. I'm going to start thinking about this seriously and long-term, how it looks, it sounds, and people think about it. But yeah, if you say, I want a project, you have faith, I want to be there for you. Plus I kind of want to start trying some new stuff. So it's more of a supportive for my friends.
One thing I wanted to kind of poke and kind of get your insights on is, for the read through, you are playing Detective Frank Welker. And the wrapper of it is meta. You are a police detective on the day before you retire, and a monster shows up, right? The cliche we've seen a bunch of times, the I'm getting too old for this shit bit. And one of the things, and knowing the cliche check boxes that we were hitting, what I wanted to do was make you very aware. I wanted to make Frank Welker very aware that he was checking all of these boxes. He is a cop on his last day. and a monster showed up. That never goes well for the cop on his last day when the monster shows up. So he, he immediately tries to remove himself from the situation. So that is the comedic wrapper and gimmick of this character. But the other part of this character that is absolutely born from me is this fear that you have great plans, you have great ideas, and you're running out of time. Is it too late to be the creator you want to be? And I just twisted that. Is it too late to be the police officer, the veteran, the Navy officer, the guard reserveman? Is it too late to be that? So I was curious, and this is where you get to call bullshit on me as the writer. Is there that, I don't know, internal or external drive or checkbox to be a hero?
That's a
Oh
lot to
man.
unwrap. Yeah.
Yeah, sorry, I monologued there for a
No,
second.
sorry. Well, you become a cop for a lot of reasons. Sometimes you just want to be, um, the person, the end all be all when crisis hits,
Mm-hmm.
because it's a 24-hour agency. When all else fails, that's who you go to. Some do it to, put a badge and gun and, terrorize their neighbors. There's a lot of different reasons. And as far as being a hero, I'm looking at the, from the view of Frank. He seems to have been the kind of guy that would have joined because it was more of a community oriented decision, because he wanted to be part and he wanted to, contribute. And he probably spent a few good years just kind of walking a beat, dealing with his neighbors, dealing with his folks, not really a lot going on. Maybe showing up a little late to the party when the big events, or not taking credit because he didn't want to be in the limelight. Makes detective, and you have to want to be a detective if you were a police officer. Now you get to put on a soft suit and investigate. So he wanted to either get off the street or just wanted to do more. And in trying to come up with his backstory, I'm sort of vacillating between, does he not consider himself a hero when he utters that line, but not a great cop?
Mm-hmm.
Does he not consider himself because he's not doing what the young kids do at that age? Or is he just regretting not getting involved? I'm sort of leaning toward, and just like preface it with this, as a cop, your whole goal in life is to, end a career without a shot fired, without a hand raised. That's your goal. You just want to, like, come in and go as you came in. That's what you want. Usually doesn't happen that way, but that's our goal. Frank seems to have gotten to that point where he made 30 years and not a lot. But now that he's looking back on 30 years, like, maybe I could have done more. Maybe I could have been more proactive. And it's too late. After 30 years, what else do you have to contribute? If you're willing to go into your 50s and 60s and you're able enough, you might wish it. But he's now going through the timeline of his career, and I had to go through this when I left law enforcement and started working elsewhere.
Mm-hmm.
You always wish that maybe I could have put a few more good years in. I'm not done yet. I could do something. Same thing with the military. I could put in a few more years. This isn't the end.
Mm-hmm.
But really, these are the kind of organizations that, unless you're in, you're out.
Mm.
you're in the club, you're not in the club, and it's a very bright line. It's, you know, you might know a few people, you might socialize with a few people, but it's an in or out. There's no in between. And Frank's starting to feel that. He's starting to feel these kids are going off and doing things on their own without my advice, my tutelage, maybe things I wanted to do. Who knows? Um, so he's really starting to hit home, and maybe getting to the point where he's just accepting that, you know, it is what it is, and that's nothing I can do about it. So I'm just going to start accepting my fate. Excuse
Mm-hmm.
me. That this is the end, and maybe I'll just take it easy for a while. And then the monster appears. So now he's got to make that decision. I'm out the door. I can ignore this and let the young bucks who want to, make some headlines, or maybe I can like have one last stab at glory
Mm-hmm.
before I go. And in the optics of people's lives, it's rarely what you've done, in the past. It's what you did 20 minutes ago that sometimes cements in people's minds.
Yeah.
If he does this, it's just, well, yeah, you were a great cop, but you did this thing. That's all they're going to talk about. This is great, So your entire your entire timeline just got uplifted a couple of points because of this one event. Um, it's Frank's a tough read, and I see where he's coming from, and I sympathize where he's coming from, because I've seen it, in my own.
Mm-hmm.
And it's a tough choice, because basically, by virtue of resigning, you've now isolated. You've lost an entire community of a social community. You're not that anymore. You used to be. You used to be. You're not, and it hurts.
Yeah. I That blew me away, and I love that you are bringing that thought and that gravitas and that honesty to a story about a corgi lizard accidentally destroying Atlantic City. If anything, it has me now more excited to record the rest of the book with you and see what you're going to bring to it, because that's shit, man. That's what you do. You elevate, and I understand the part of your brain that is keeping you humble. But man, as somebody who has worked with you and already has 5 other projects in the back of my mind where you're already penciled in, whether you knew it or not.
Yeah.
By the way, you're starring in my independent movie. If you ever get it made, just roll's yours. It's that I'm gonna say care. But as we're kind of wrapping all this up, that word care, if you look back over the last 40 minutes, I mean, that's in everything you do, and that manifests itself in sitting down with a corgi lizard book and clearly cracking this character open, and thinking about it. As a director, as the guy, watching you pick up the ball and run with it, I can't tell you how much I appreciate that, and how excited I am. And how smart I look because I gave you the ball, and look what he did. But it's all you. The care that, again, whether you recognized it at the time or not, that you gave, these, you described, 79 to 82, not, not the kindest time to others. But you found yourself amongst them, you love them, and you did what you could to care for them. And then just throughout it all, I mean, you're a humane society. You help the animals because you cared about them. And all of these jobs are in service of something, whether it's tangible or intangible. So it's impressive. It's one of the reasons why I always look at you, God, man, I'm just so glad you're my friend. And I'm glad I get to be in your orbit. I am and I am thrilled to introduce you to some new people. I'm thrilled to be making another thing with you. And I hope we do it forever and ever and ever. I don't know where else to go from here, other than I love you to death.
I think
Thank
you've done enough damage, George.
you. Okay, we're together now, boo. And again, thank you so much for everything we have done to this point. Thank you for joining me on another creative endeavor. I absolutely love you. And I can't wait to keep doing this stuff with you.
Listen, love you, man, and thank you for everything. And I just, let's keep this up until I futz it up so much that you don't want to work with me. But we'll see if we get there or not. I don't know.
That is a deal. Thanks.
That is high praise indeed.
I love you, man. Thank you.
Thank you.
So that is my friend Art, and I hope you're walking away with a little bit of understanding of why he means so much to me and to the people around him. I love him to death, and I am so excited that you got to meet him. Before we go, I have a request. Go into the description, and you're going to see a link to a short film that I wrote and directed and that Arthur starred in called Healed. It blows me away, his performance in this short film, and I would love for you to see him do his thing and take something that I loved and then elevated it into something I think is pretty damn amazing. 5-minute video, check it out down below. Outside of that, thank you again for watching, and we will talk again later. Take care.